Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by Spartan Forge. On today's episode, I am joined by the man Johnny Stewart, my cousin Mason Martonik, and my dad Joe Martonik. So these are some of the best, most accomplished big woods hunters that I personally know and during the archery seasons, and I've decided to do a roundtable discussion with them at Johnny's deer camp all about hunting the pre-rut and the rut. So specific topics will include first starting off with Johnny's story about his public land West Virginia buck that he took a few weeks ago, kind of breaking down that hunt and how he found success on an old 8-point on that piece of public ground. What to do when you're not finding sign, some late October strategies, the best time of the day for activity, the top scrape locations to hunt, how to figure out where to hunt and having confidence in doing that, which is by far, I did an Instagram survey, a couple weeks ago about rut struggles and what people struggled with during the rut, and got 300 and some responses, and actually might even be more by the last time I looked at it, but it was very focused, probably 75, 80%, all about the same problem of not having confidence in their spot or having too many locations, not knowing where to go. So we cover that in detail, how much you should rely on trail cameras and more. So I split this up into two parts. So this is just what's part of this first part here. And then later this week, I'll drop the second episode, to break it into a little bit more bite-sized pieces so that you can listen to it rather than having just a big 2 hour and something long conversation. So broke that up into two parts for your listening pleasure. So I really enjoyed recording this episode with these guys and sitting down and talking through it, and always learn something no matter how much time I spend around them. Getting some of these questions out, I think was really good conversation. It's favorite time to be in the woods for us whitetail hunters, and in the big woods, I think there's no better time to capitalize than the next few weeks here. So I hope everyone has some luck with that. But first, I wanted to share the Mountain Buck Monday story of the week, which I just shared on East Meets West Facebook and Instagram page yesterday, which is from Justin Crossley out of Pennsylvania. So Justin wrote in, years of trail camera data and scouting for consistent good buck sign has helped me narrow down locations in the northern PA big woods. One particular spot has become deadly over the years because I only hunt it once and I like to keep it fresh. This year I decided to try out a foldable decoy of a small 6-point buck that we called Dinker. On November 9th, I went into a spot and put Dinker out in front of me. I had planned on doing some calls, but it was super calm, so I decided to wait. And 20 minutes after legal shooting light, I heard something behind me, and I could see a buck coming up over the ridge, and he locked on to Dinker. After about a minute of a stare down, he turned and headed towards the decoy. It felt like forever as he would stop every few steps and stare at Dinker. He finally cleared some limbs, and I could arrow him at less than 10 yards as he was focused on the decoy. He ran just 60 yards and fell over. He was my biggest 8-point ever and my widest buck ever. I always use the wind and thermals to my advantage, and the decoy is just another tool to use in the big woods. I doubt it will always work this well, but it's worth the risk to me. And you need to go check out this photo. It's one of the widest deer that I've seen in a long time coming out of the big woods. So awesome buck, Justin. This isn't his first time on Mountain Buck Monday. Killed a big one a few years ago, I believe, that I had shared the story on. So must be doing something right. Congratulations on that. Really appreciate you sending that story in. And also decoys we didn't talk about them at all in these couple podcasts here, but I do use decoys during the rut in specific locations if I'm trying to catch the attention of a deer and pull them over to a spot. Not in all situations do I use them, but I have used them and had luck with them, and also have had them become afraid of it too. So it's like, as Justin said, there's a risk element to it, but I think a lot of times, depending on the situation, it can work out in your favor. But with that being said, just dropped my New York buck video from last year. So that hunt happened on October 23rd, 2021. So I just released the video on that where I self-filmed just kind of the process of it and showing it and getting that buck out. So still trying to put out stuff there on YouTube weekly outside of the podcast. So to go over and check that out. And if you like the YouTube channel, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe. That helps out a ton. But yeah, just keeping down the rabbit hole and focusing on these podcasts to get out to you at this time of year. Personally, I've been out in the woods scouting quite a bit, a decent amount, just kind of trying to find fresh sign, and it's starting to definitely pop up. I think towards the end of this week here, I'm going to spend some time in the tree. Well, I definitely will be, but I'm still going to focus on at least a few hours a day as I'm trying to catch up with getting the content out and getting some articles I need written done. But focusing on just scouting and getting cameras set, whether I ever even hunt the areas this year, to get some intel for the following years, trying to get cameras out, moving around, and then putting together a plan. At least in my area, Spartan Forge is showing actually full range days starting the day that this podcast comes out, through the rest of this week. And in another area that I hunt, not until later in the week does it show full range movement. So that's exciting. But with that being said, I hope everyone has a great rest of your week and enjoys these couple podcast episodes. If you like them, share them with your friends, family, everything. That helps out so much. And also head over to the website if you want to check out the whole deer camp line of apparel at eastmeetswesthunt.com/shop. You can check that out, and we will talk to you soon. All right, I think we're live. Johnny, you ready?
I'm ready, Beau. Oh, yeah.
This is going to be a good one. We're at Johnny's camp, and I guess the date here of recording this is October the 20th, so just about to get good. So looking, I guess, from your screen left to right, we got the man Johnny Stewart over here. How about Johnny? You do the introductions.
All right, so you got me, Johnny Stewart, the Johnny Stewart. How am I sounding? Good?
Yeah, you sound good.
Should I look at the camera?
You can do whatever you want, John.
I'm going to turn around. Backwards. Mountain Man Joe. He should be number one with the mic, not you. And we got, of course, what do we say? Mason got a nickname for his deflection? Or just Mason Martonik, the Elk Slayer.
There
you go.
I like it.
And Beau.
What's mine?
The Great.
Wow. Beau knows.
Beau knows, yeah.
But anyways, yeah, we're at camp. It's the first time you've been at camp with us. We've been having time at camp, but we've haven't included you, I guess, up to this point at our camp.
What, your camp? Which camp?
Deer camp, my grandpa's camp.
This year, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get the invite. You
were down in Ohio or something.
I was sitting here sulking. I was like, I wonder if Beau's going to invite me up to camp.
I thought you were talking about all the times you're drinking beer at Johnny's camp and he wasn't here.
That's what I thought.
That's what I was thinking about. I thought we weren't going to say nothing, Beau.
Yeah.
Where you been, John? We've been here at your camp drinking, partying.
We cleaned up pretty nice.
You did good. I didn't know. I blamed it on the neighbor. It stayed once or twice. I was bitching at him.
Yeah. What were you saying with when the neighbor was staying here?
Greg,
about the gas meter.
Oh, yeah. I come up and he's working on his camp next door. He bought the camp next door. And I'd come up and he had a damn thermostat on 75, like he's paying, like he's not paying for it, I'd come in, I said, damn, Greg. I said, we got to get some WD-40 on my gas meter. The bearings are wearing out. It's spinning so fast over here. You know what I mean? I said, throw a log on the fire. You don't have to use all my gas. Yeah. He's out, though. He moved in next door.
Got it all fixed up?
Got it finished, yep.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's nice area you got here. You got your food plot's looking good back there.
It's green. It's the turnips didn't do real good. I think the biggest buck we got here is in the backyard at night. A good 12. Probably.
You never showed us the picture.
I lost it.
Yeah. We know how that goes.
The big 8, nice 12. Well, he's a 12. He got kickers off his 2s, but he's down here in the middle of the night. He'll probably daylight maybe when he needs to find a girlfriend, I'm thinking.
Got some does hanging around?
Oh, yeah. Neighbor shot one tonight. I had to go drag it out of the hollow for him.
Yeah, we got to camp, so me and my dad and Mason show up and open the door. We're yelling, "No, Johnny." There's a note written there. It looks like a preschool kid wrote it. Beau, I'm up on the hill dragging neighbor's doe.
Yeah,
Be back soon.
I told the neighbors that hunt here, I said, just sit here in the blind. All the deer will come out in the field. I only got not even an acre, and they got to go up in the woods and chase them around. So I got here. I was slaving over some jalapeno poppers, some hors d'oeuvres for the gang when they got here.
You
for
did a
Beau.
good job with that, too.
Yeah, I had my recipe book out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't believe that 1 second.
No.
You didn't even know how to turn your stove on.
That's the first time I used it.
Oh,
But the
man.
neighbor stopped. I need a hand. Like, all right. I shot a doe. And he pulled out Offix. And he's like, I'm like, oh, what are you doing way up? I shot a doe way up the hollow, up over the mountain. I'm like, what? I got my four-wheeler. Let's go. So I can get on the back of the four-wheeler. He got a four-wheeler trail. It goes all the way up there. And then we park. He's like, here it is over there. And he got bad knees. I was like, take me through the jungle, down a mountain, down in the creek. He's like, I'll help you. I said, no, you just hold the light,
It was all good. You weren't gone that long.
Well,
We only drank about 3 or 4 year beers while we were
Well,
waiting.
when the lady neighbor showed up and said, "Hey, is anybody helping the guy that shot
Steve, yeah.
shot the doe?" And I'm like, "I think Johnny is. He left us a note." And she's like, "Oh, he's way up there." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh God, this is gonna be a late night."
No.
But no, you were back down pretty quick. I mean, you were sweaty, but
like I had beer to drink. I had to get done with that drag.
yeah,
Give a dog a bone.
a little motivation.
Yeah.
That's your favorite stuff. I brought you some Big Truck.
Yeah, the Big Truck's good stuff. It's hazy IPA. I like it.
That's the best right there.
That's your guys'
good.
favorites?
Yeah.
Yeah, too bad we ain't got any more.
I didn't think that you guys were gonna drink it all before we started recording, but
If we weren't waiting for Johnny, we probably would have had enough.
The neighbor's like, they do a lot of butcher and make sausage. What do you want? You want summer sausage? What do you want? He makes deer sticks, this and that. Italian sausage. He said, I'll make you some. I said, all right. He always drops stuff off. So I got some meat coming.
no, there you go. Well, you got some meat because you already shot a West Virginia buck.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a nice deer about 40 minutes from my house near Pittsburgh. There's a piece of public that I grew up hunting. I haven't been there in 20 years. So I went out there this summer, dropped some cams, and got out there in September, and this deer was the biggest deer I had on camera. The camera's up in a tree aiming down. I had him, and when I checked it, I'm like, man, that's that's the biggest deer in here. I figured like maybe 120, 100, maybe low 20s. I almost didn't want to shoot him. I was wanting something bigger. But then I saw him the one morning when I was hunting, and it was like, he ain't bad. I'll have to take him out of the herd.
That's a great deer, especially for
He's a
that
good
area.
deer,
That's
yeah.
a good deer. That's a good deer.
I was happy with him. He was bed in a cut, and he come up out of there like it never happens that way. But there was a little swell, a little ditch going down into the cut, and he come up that little ditch, maybe catching thermals, drifting down, and there was a little snag of trees that he gravitated to, and in that dip, and he stood there for a couple minutes. He come up, and I shot him, and that was it.
Well, explain how you were explaining to us earlier, like how you kind of found that spot. You're like, if there's a mature deer living here, you found like an eastern-facing ridge, and it was on the far end of the public, basically, is what you were saying.
Yeah, I like finding biggest thing I find is more rugged, not so much gradual terrain, is east-facing finger ridges, because it's with your southwest wind, you can't even get to them, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's what this was, and the north of the east face of that ridge line was private cut, and if you follow the ridge, it kind of the left side of the ridge near the point near the end was kind of gradual, and that was the private, and it was just like I could see on Spartan Forge, it was kind of a flat, and I could see being on the public, I could kind of see. I said that's where he's living, you know. And I got him on camera once, but we had like 5 days of northeast wind. Any other time, I could have never hunted there. Southwest, west, southwest, never. And I boiled his skull out, and I'd say he's probably, his teeth were wore down. I just compared I got his bottom jaw, but his top teeth in his skull were probably, I compared it with another year, I'm figuring he's probably at least 6 years old.
Yeah.
But I'm figuring, I got in there, it was October 2nd, and he'd been living there maybe for in that area probably 3 to 4 years and doing the same thing and just so comfortable with it. You know, it's association. He'd never seen anybody back there. It was a 40-minute walk from one side of the public to the other. And that early in October, he was just so comfortable with living and letting his guard down on that northeast wind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just keep doing what always worked. And yeah, it worked out. I shot him at 20 yards, and drag wasn't too bad. I had to go across. It would remind me of Beau dragging his deer, that big one, across the creek.
Yeah, you did have to do that, didn't
Yeah.
you?
Took the waders, so I drug him down to the creek. It was like a cliff. Half the time, deer just fell down the cliff to the creek. Then I called my buddy, and he met me on the other side, and it took me an hour to get back to my ride. I had waders, and I drove all the way around, put them waders on, and it was right after some hurricane or somewhere come through. We had 2 days of rain, and it was ripping pretty hardcore, you know.
Yeah.
So I got across, and it worked out pretty good. It was, boy, I was wore out.
You're getting older.
Whoa, I am. I don't feel older. I feel good.
That's good.
You should see me dragging that doe. Lightning.
I seen you coming down through the field.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wanted a beer, you know.
You were coming pretty hard.
So yeah, it was my West Virginia. It was nice to shoot a deer in October because it's been so many years. Probably 15, 20 years since I shot a deer in October.
Well, you're always working in October normally.
Yeah, that 4-letter word, yeah. So this year I kind of rearranged it and made sure I got some hunting time. It was nice to shoot a deer early, you know. I like that. And I feel like you can get on a little more of it. Like I said, no one's out there that early if you can find him, and he's still in his, you know, normal, maybe summertime, going into fall habits, and nobody's messing with him.
Yeah.
You can capitalize on them, you know. Then you get in October, guys start getting out there, and then he might turn a little more nocturnal and that. But it was a fun hunt. Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah, you called it. You texted me that day and said you were going to shoot that buck, and you did exactly that. You're like, you felt good about it. You were confident in your setup, and it obviously worked out. And you're like, you were saying about that little swell that
that
was
little
there.
swell. It's in minute things. Like when you start setting your tree stand up, you're like, okay, where? Because you know you could shoot 30, 40 yards each way. So I got to be exactly where he walks, and he don't just walk anywhere just for like, loady-doed, I'm just gonna walk here. Like, you know what I mean? There's a reason for him. And then when because that ridge line was probably 300-400 yards, and he was coming. It was cut on the north side the whole way. So okay, where's he coming out? And I just looked down that ridge line. I just seen that little dip going down in which was to the north, into the private and the cut. And like I said, it was just like fish out in the ocean. They're gonna gravitate towards something, you know. And then I seen that snag, a dead tree, and I said he's gonna walk right to that, and he's gonna just. And he did exactly what. I'm like, wow, this never happens.
Yeah.
He stood there, and the thermals, you know, even though it was an east-northeast wind, you know, when that sun went down, the thermals drifted right down that ditch. So I made sure I was west 30 yards of that swell. I didn't want to, you know, because he would have smelled me. So it worked out perfectly. You know, you got to be meticulous and, you know.
Yeah, to get in bow range, you know,
Yeah.
it's a whole different world. What do you think? Like, So you said it was like a northeast wind, and it was kind of set up, with that east facing ridge. Do you think that when they switch those winds like that they change their bedding up, or do you think they have kind of those homes and they just kind of
I
shift
think
around a little bit?
that deer was just so comfortable and was doing the same thing every day that no one messed with him.
Yeah.
And he'd send the other deer up there first. There was a small buck and does all go out, and kind of he would be the last one. But
was there much of a trail system coming up through
there
that
was
as well, or
I think they come up out of the thick stuff, and they headed west on that ridge. And I think there was some private, and I can see fields. I think them does were starting to march, west on that ridge, and kind of heading toward those fields, probably getting there right around dark. He probably gets there right around dark. They probably get there before dark, but that's I think that was. Yeah, I bet you them fields were probably 600 yards. But I mean, they'll go, they'll just mosey up, and it was wild. I seen the does come out, and it was like beeline. We have a place to be, and there was trails running that way. They come up, and that was their pattern. You know what I mean? It was pretty neat. They were going from point A to point B because there was trails running that whole length of that ridge. There was a fair amount of deer there, But even the does come out. There was like, even with the wind, walking with the wind at their back, they weren't bothered because this is something they're comfortable. No, maybe with an exception of a coyote here or there, but no one messing with them as far as a predator. So everything was. No deer were like looking up in trees, and no one was hunting there yet. So it was a cool spot that I'm like, man, this could really happen.
What were you seeing for sign that you picked that spot?
He laid down some nice rubs. I was expecting a bigger deer, but after having my camera there like mid-August till then, he was the only one there. So smaller deer. I know he rubbed a 6-inch tree. Wasn't real high, but he got the bark off it, and then there was maybe the size of a beer can, and he rubbed it up high, really, like, I'm like, and it was early, like, I'm talking second week of September. I'm like, man, he was a mature deer, he wasn't a, juvenile or anything. He was, he was a good deer, so maybe he had a bigger rack at one time, and but yeah, I seen all the rubs.
Know what my dad said, that you think he was old because he was chewing on, that his teeth were wore down, but he was saying that he's just chewing on rocks. That's why.
Chewing on rocks. He's probably a 2-year-old.
tough deer.
Yeah. He ain't been to the dentist in a while.
Yeah, we were John on you a little bit earlier.
Yeah, we had to ride you with it a little bit.
No, I know. Joe's looking at the teeth. I don't know. I think I was like, he's old, Joe. Look at him.
I think he's a year and a half just been chewing on rocks.
He's just chewing on at rocks down there. You get that in their mouth when they're down in West Virginia. You're right. I shot an immature deer. No, really, I ground him down with a foul.
That's a good trick.
Yeah.
To make everyone think that it's an older deer.
Yeah.
And I don't remember seeing a picture of the body. I think I don't know if there wasn't even a picture with you with it. Are you sure you shot it, or did you hit it with your truck?
Yeah, I shot it.
All right.
Why'd you get a new vehicle recently?
Yeah, you're right. Well, the front end of mine was kind of banged up.
Not related.
Yeah, not. I mean.
Yeah, that happened like end of September, not early October.
Yeah, it's been like that.
Yeah, I gotcha. No, that's awesome. That's good to get one like kicked off of the season there. It kind of, I don't know, it feels like it relieves a little bit of that anxiety, like no matter as much as you're excited for deer season, you always have that like anxiety too of like when you have a tag still in your pocket. When you get one out of the way, I don't know, the way I feel is that you feel a little bit of relief. Do you feel that way?
Definitely, and I was like dealing with some target panic. This was bothering me a lot, and then just shooting that deer helped out, giving you that confidence that when a deer's in range, you could take it. I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is the smallest deer I shoot all year or whatever, but at least I broke the ice. I got the monkey off my back,
Yeah,
so, yeah, and that's...
No, that was a good deer. I'm just joking with you about that.
No, yeah. No, but when I did see him, I'm like, the one morning I seen him when I was there, and I said, I'll take him. I'm taking him out of the herd, So then when I decided to hunt that deer, then it was fun. You know what I mean? Like, this is the one I want to hunt. So it kind of It wasn't just like I'm waiting for any deer to come. I said I'll take him. So yeah, that was. I think you could take like 3 buck in West Virginia.
Yeah, you
I was
can
talking to
bunch
Bill.
of- Yeah.
Wow.
So I did get a rifle tag and an additional rifle, but I was trying to somehow to try to get back down to the bow hunt as if I have time to, add another,
Yeah, if you
But I
got
think-
Ohio, you have a North Dakota tag, you have a
Yeah.
Pennsylvania tag, as if you have all this time.
Yeah, I know.
Luckily, I mean, I give you credit that you figured out, this year as far as setting up your business so that you can hunt in October this year. Because normally,
Yeah.
Johnny's known as the late season guy, but that's because you don't really hunt normally in October.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've always been, starting, even sometimes late in the rut. Like you don't get out until a little bit into November, and then December and January you're always, getting after it when everybody else is, sitting on a couch, stuffing their faces with Thanksgiving, Christmas food, and.
Bo throws a towel and Bo, you want to go hunting? I'm done. I'm more burned out.
One time I said that. That was like
You gotta
you were
live
like
it down.
Johnny texted me like January 18th one year. It's like, you want to go Ohio? I'm like, I really don't want to go. I know you've given me crap for that since, and I
Yeah.
promise you I won't say no now.
I remember that year we were picking sheds up and Johnny still wanting to go hunting.
Well, we were down in Ohio last year. My buddies come down, and I'm going up in the woods with my bow. They're across the street picking up horns. So the next day, I'm like, you know what? I got up in the morning, and I just started a fire and started drinking. I didn't go hunting. And I think it was pretty wild because I didn't start hunting last year till like November 14th after the Veterans Hunt. That's the first time I got to hunt. I think I went and sat in the woods once or twice to jump out, but it wasn't like, I'm serious about my hunt. But then you go all year, and it was like that. Like your brain's in go mode. It's hunting season. I'm hunting. And then when I decided to throw the towel in, it was like a weight off my back. You got to hunt. I got to go because that's the frame of mind you're in. And that next day I said, I'm done for the year. It's like if you do shoot your one and only buck that you wanted to hunt, and you just like drink a bit, celebrate. So like, and that's what I say about hunting the whole season. Even if you don't like kill a deer, once you decide it's over, I that next day I just drank beer. I just sat there and enjoyed my, reflected on the season. It's over and I'm done. I'm drinking beer and not thinking where, looking at my phone, wondering where I should grab a camera or where I should go hunting tomorrow or what the weather is. It's like all that stuff that you do to try to figure these animals out. Then it's just gone. It's like crack a beer. I'm done. Like.
Yeah, once you admit you have a problem, then there's
Yeah.
relief there. it's,
right.
it's an addiction.
It's bad. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it is funny though. Like you wait all year for hunting season and you can't wait, and then but there also gets that there's a point where you're like I really want to shoot something. Like you almost like build this anxiety in yourself, like that. I don't know. Like Mason and I talked about it today on the phone. Mason called me today to talk. He's like, should I take off work, tomorrow or the next day to go hunting? And he's like, I don't know. He goes, I just all of a sudden started getting stressed about hunting season.
Yeah, I was panicked to work today for no reason. I just started thinking about hunting, getting in my own head. I called, well, what are your trail cameras doing? What's happening? Because I'm not seeing anything. And, I only have limited time this year because I spent all my time out in Montana. So taking a time off was a bad decision. Not that I was half considering it, but Beau's like, yeah, definitely just save your time. Nothing's happening
relax.
on my end.
John's out there busting his ass. And he ain't seen none. Just relax.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, you're not alone, Mason. I said, my cameras aren't like fired off or anything anyways. Like mine aren't anything crazy. So.
And then he's talking me off my ledge, and then he starts venting like he's going to therapy about what he's trying to find his bucks now too.
Yeah.
And
It's therapy time.
Beau's unplugging me here, so
That's enough
Sorry.
for you.
Well, you pointed to it.
It looks like it's half out.
Can you still hear out of it?
yeah, I can hear you good now.
Check, baby.
So he's talking me off the ledge, and then he starts talking about how you can't find his bucks that he's looking for, and this and that. And then it's so easy to give somebody else advice, like talk them off the ledge, but then it comes back to you, and it's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I have nothing going for me. I'll never kill a buck again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's funny. I went through a cycle this week of like as I was out scouting and I couldn't find any sign. Like someone had messaged me on Instagram about, they were like, hey, you know, I'm checking these spots and I'm not finding any sign. I'm doing, you know, the things, and I'm like, you're not alone. Like I said, I can't find anything right now. And
Right.
that's just normal. Like you go through these phases of you can't find, you could be doing the right things. It just might not be happening, or it's not, you know, they're not laying down sign yet or whatever it might be. And it's just like, my advice is just check more spots. Like just keep moving. I mean, no matter how much we think that we might have something figured out or you have a clue, it's just constantly just keep trying and moving, and you know, depending on what you're looking for the time of year.
Well, with this cold front that came in, I think everybody had high expectations. Yeah. I know I did, and I wasn't seeing the movement that I was expecting to see. But, you know, like the Spartan Forge app said normal.
Normal.
It's a core area.
Yeah. It was.
I'm like, this is wrong. It's going to be colder. Going to be moving. And I was out for 3 days. I told Bill, I was like, spot on, Bill.
Yeah.
It was core area, normal movement.
Yeah.
I didn't see shit.
Jerk. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was. I thought the same thing. I was like, this can't be right.
This can't be right.
This can't be right. We're getting
Yeah.
snow. I said historically, you know, snow and then rain, and then after it, these scrapes are going to be wide open. Big Buck's going to come in 18 yards, and he's done. Yeah. Like it was in my head, and Spartan Forge kept saying core area like basically terrible. You know, you have to be close to them, and I didn't know where they were bedded at this point. Like I haven't been out enough or having tabs on any of these deer, and I didn't feel, you know, confident in it. And it was spot on, and I didn't. And you know, this is a point where you kind of got to adapt. You know, I talk a lot about historical data and how it helps, but there's sometimes that historical data isn't always right. You know what I mean? I just had a scrape that 2 years ago, this one buck I was hunting October 14th at 8 o'clock in the morning, just did, you know, he came out and hit this scrape. I'm like, it's going to happen again. Same exact weather conditions. I didn't see a dang thing. What's going on?
My neighbor's here.
Oh, is he?
I'm going to keep talking, but I don't talk to him.
Okay. Yeah, so sometimes that happens that way, and there's not anything that you can do about it, really.
Yeah, it you know, and when I wasn't seeing anything, the last 2 nights I've been pouring over camera data for back to 2009 as back to, trying to correlate, you know, because there's 1 year, I think it was 2018, there was activity on October 10th or 12th, 13th, and 14th, heavy activity, and it was actually a full moon, you know, that, and but it was cold, and it's like, you know, am I missing something here? But most of the majority, I'd say 95% of my information that I went back through is, you know, these next couple days, you know, the 20th, well, today or tomorrow, 21st, 22nd, you know, you start seeing some of the younger bucks daylighting, but come around the 25th, 26th, 27th is, you know, when you start getting the big boys daylighting. I mean, you have your exceptions. You can have a big boy, you know, middle of the month, or even, well, I had them in end of September on scrapes. But yeah, it was, I was, you know, shocked, I guess, to say the least, about not having the activity that I was expecting here the last few days.
Well, I think too, like the early October and the mid-October, it can be really good, but I think you got to be close to where they're bedding.
Oh yeah,
I think you got to be, you got to have tabs on where they're, you know, bedding at, or get lucky that scrape is that close to where they're bedding. If you don't know, you know, that's in my opinion, and I don't think any of my cameras were located in locations where it was good, really.
Yeah, and I don't sit on beds either, because, you know, I'm a scrape hunter, and if I can get a scrape close to a bed, that's great, but I don't feel they bed in the same, they're not consistent in their bedding. So I don't have anything real close to their beds that I could feel confident. And if I do have some ideas where some of these nice bucks that I'm hunting are bedding, but there's no easy access, and they're bedding here for a reason. I know I'll get busted trying to get in there, so I don't want to push the issue this early, I guess.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Joe. A couple spots, I'm like, southwest wind, I can maybe get in there hunting, but exactly what you said. It's early. I don't want to F it up now.
Yeah.
When it's going to be good and the time's going to be in there. But that's, I mean, what you said you were thinking and saying, my mind was the same thing. I was like, I got places I can get in, but it's early. I don't want to mess it up. I know I can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Time's going to come. But what you were saying earlier, Beau, about like not finding the scrapes, me and you had put a camera out this summer together, July 4th, and made a scrape. I had a pile of does hitting it all summer. These does hit it, and I think I maybe had one buck on it all summer. I check it maybe once a month. Doe. So on the 15th, 16th, I checked it. Does, sprayed some shit on a scrape, and I checked it on the 18th. A doe hit it on the 16th that night, and that night and next night, 2 nights in a row, there was a total of 7 bucks that hit the scrape.
Wow.
And there's scrapes in the woods, so like you were saying, you keep scouting and find it. You're not finding it. So maybe 1 out of 50 doses in heat coming in, like maybe the 24th.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I'm saying? 25th, because I know last year in that spot, I rode down that road and I seen 140 inch on October 25th at 2 o'clock while it was raining, chasing a doe. So I'm like, I'm going back there this year, and we're getting right on the heels of that 25th, that date. Maybe that doe's still there, and maybe she's the one to hit that scrape
Right.
on the 19th.
Yeah,
18th,
I think
19th.
I think this podcast will actually go out that right around that. Yeah, it'll go out the 25th, so that'll be right at the time as this is starting to.
So I think I'm fortunate. I got an area, and I've been sticking with that area. That maybe, there's scrapes. And 7 bucks just showed up. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, like they're cruising at night, and then if that doe's there, I mean, not saying she ain't gonna wander around, but it's like when I do like historically put that in the back of your mind when you see something happen like that in the following year, you want to get there about the same time, especially that earlier 25th, that buck was chasing a doe. I'm like, wow, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So
Yeah, and I use my camera data for fawn birth. When I pick up a fawn in the spring, I'll go back 200 days and try to figure out about when they might have been bred, and I log that information. I think a doe, I think their core areas, they hang around the same area, from unless she was chased out of the area and got bred, but it gives me a good idea, at least gives me some hope that maybe there'd be some action happening that time frame.
Why is this the first time I'm hearing about this, Mason? That's some good information.
You don't listen when I tell you about it.
Okay. That's it. You don't listen. He told you all this. If you would just listen to your dad once.
I listened to your podcast, and you're like, man, this is real good information. I'm thinking, I told him all this stuff.
He has so much in his computer processor brain, he doesn't think that we can handle it.
Yeah, he's probably right.
Yeah. A couple hours ago, we were talking about hunting evenings versus mornings.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We were talking about evening hunts, and my Uncle Joe starts going, back in 1987, I killed one in the evening, 1995, 1999. just listing off the years he got his bucks in the evening. It's like, how do you remember all that?
But I told you about this fawn birth thing when you were 3. I mean, I
You
can't,
don't remember.
I can't help it if you can't remember.
Yeah, you sure remembered.
See,
I
that's
tell you
what I'm
once,
dealing with,
I'm going
John.
to tell you one time, Beau, that's it.
That's what I'm dealing with.
Should have got him a notepad.
It's like when I got kicked out of hunting his tree stands. Like I wasn't allowed to hunt them. I was around
Got to
18.
cut the cord sooner or later.
You got
Yeah.
Cut the cord.
Get on your own.
I was in college. I didn't have time to come home and scout, and he's like, no, it's time for you to, push me out of the nest, and I didn't even have wings yet.
I know I talked to Beau once in a while over the past. What's your dad saying? I don't know. He won't tell me. Your dad? He don't tell me. I don't know what he's saying. What kind of sheds he find? He won't tell me. I'm like, what? Really?
He shares more with you than he does me.
Yeah.
Maybe you're his.
Johnny's his son he never had.
Yeah. The son he always wanted.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Mason, what about you with late October? What's like in the past? What's your luck been, or like cameras shown, or anything as far as like what you're looking at?
I definitely like scrapes the end of October. I wouldn't say that I'm overly successful. That seems like the last four or 5 years I've been more of a second week in November guy. Just I don't know if it's by chance or what, but yeah, definitely I like my morning hunts too. I always have a lot of confidence going into mornings versus evenings, where every day I wake up and walk to my stand in the dark, climb up. I think it's gonna be the day. I have that feeling every single morning. I love my frosty mornings, even if it's going to be 60, 65 during the day. If it's going to be a nice frosty morning, man, I think it's going to happen every time.
Yeah.
That's tomorrow, I think. I'm going to say it. I think
Not all of us are going to sleep in.
Not
I know.
me.
I've been saying that. I think tomorrow's going to be good.
I'm going to be out. I'm going to be in my tree at 6:30.
All right.
Because I got that one. I'm going to shake hands with him. Am I laughing?
No, you're
No.
serious.
But I'll be shaking Beau when one walks by my camera tomorrow morning and I'm at work. He talked me out of
I
it.
told him not to take off.
Don't-
Don't listen to me. You can't go by my advice.
It just feels like one of these days it's just going to open up.
It has to. Yeah, it's gonna.
We've been having phenomenal weather in October, and I think like if we get like the weather we had this past week, next week I think as this podcast goes out, like this week I think can be just phenomenal.
So what do you think, Joe? Like I looked at the weather. It's supposed to be next week 60s,
Yeah.
maybe 70. I mean,
Yeah.
what's your opinion? I mean, we're getting into
Mornings
hardcore
again.
pre-rut, just morning, evening still, or any
Well,
daytime?
going through some of my camera data, back to 2009, the last few days. I think October 30th is the day, but that's a Sunday, so you're not going to be able to go out.
Yeah.
That to me is where when it seems like it starts as far as the mature bucks under feet, daylight, from my camera information. No, I'm just going to play it by ear as far as my time off, or I may hunt a couple mornings here next week. It's going to be a day before decision for me on what days I go. But come Halloween, or the 29th would be that Saturday. But from there on out, I'll be off work that first week of November for sure.
How about like now when you're like if you have an evening or after work or a Sunday, or not a Sunday, I mean, like a day that you would you rather hunt or go check like we were talking earlier, like keep checking cameras
Yeah.
till you get, I mean, like this time of year, 25th, 23rd, 22nd. I mean, do you keep trying to find fresher sign? I mean,
Definitely want to try to find a fresh sign, but I'm going off of historical data as well. So that's why I'm going through and see. And right now, I don't have anything that says this is where I need to sit tomorrow, even though the weather conditions are going to be there. But I know I'm probably going to be wrong. I know one of my cameras is probably going to show me where I should have been.
yeah.
Spartan Forge is still saying core area, I think.
Core
Yeah,
area.
so maybe
Normal.
it's
I think abnormal Saturday.
Yeah. I haven't looked at it like out past for this area at least yet, but yeah.
But when you start seeing that, how it is correct, you really believe like then that it's that much more of a tool to have. Like, okay, I'm not going hunting today, or because I have something else I need to do at home.
Yeah,
or
when
something like
you're trying to battle like vacation, or you're battling, your boss is not a good person, but like,
that.
but you know what I mean? Like when you're trying to like and say like in Mason's shoes, where he's looking at like, okay, I have 5 days of vacation left. When am I going to use them? That's a very good tool to be able to
Definitely.
to use for that, to determine when you're going to go out. In my opinion, I guess.
Yeah, and especially if it aligns with some of your historical camera data, which it most likely will.
Yeah.
That gives you that little extra bit of confidence to, this is the day, this is when it's going to happen.
So, Mason, you're talking about mornings. Like, I was talking about this with Zach Varenbaugh on a podcast that'll come out next week, but I've never killed a deer during like late October or the rut first thing in the morning. Even though it feels great, to me it's always like when the frost is burning off, like almost like that 9-10 o'clock in the morning time. It's still cold, but it's not where it's not at the 70-degree mark, but it's not also at the 29-degree mark. Like it could just be my setups too that aren't like, they're not bedding type setups, or scrapes that are associated with does most of the time is what it is, or travel kind of areas. And I believe that, like, especially when it starts getting into the rut, that those bucks are waiting for those does to bed down, and sometimes those does aren't bedding down first thing in the morning. It might take them a couple hours after daylight before they get settled in.
Yeah.
And this is my thought, is those bucks are just laying, they take a little break. They've been out all night running, they take a break, they lay down for a little bit, and then they get up and they go and start checking out those does. I don't know, that's just been my experience with it.
No, I'd second that for sure. I did shoot one of my last good bucks at first light, but for the most part, even on days that I'm not getting bucks, which is more days than not, is the action is definitely picking up after the frost burns off.
Yeah,
sure.
I always seen that, and there's times I would go in like maybe a little bit after light, just because I'm like, there's so many times I sat and got out there dark and sit, and it's like I don't see nothing till that starts heating up.
Yeah, and it's like two waves. You want to be there at daylight because it can happen, and then, in your situation, I've had a couple of nice bucks I've killed at first light, but then there's a lull, it seems like, until maybe 9:30, 10 a.m. Then it starts picking back up.
Yep.
Yeah. What about scrape locations? Late October here, or like what is a scrape that triggers? Let's start with you, Johnny. Like, when you find a scrape that you want to hunt, and you're like, I'm gonna hunt this, late October into November. What makes that like a scrape you want to hunt? Because there could be hundreds of scrapes in the woods at that point.
I think a lot of the smaller ones are insignificant, not a lick and branch, but the bigger ones, if they're shitting them, I feel like, man, they're feeling really good. They're even gonna take a dump there. You know what I mean?
I never thought of that.
No,
I never saw that, or never thought of that, I guess.
Yeah, no, I've seen shit in the scrapes.
Yeah,
I never overthought it too much.
I feel like if they feel so good about the spot that they gotta just drop a deuce.
You don't shit in your scrapes, do you?
I ain't gonna say. It's a secret. Yeah, no.
All right, so bigger scrapes, lick and branch.
So bigger scrapes, lick and branch. Something significant. The bigger the better. If it's the size of this table, it's like, whoa. A lot of deer are hitting it. That time of year, just that's they're trying to communicate, and if there's a lot of deer communicating, then it's always about being downwind, like, don't, you could set up on it if you can have a good wind, or but they just like the place I'm hunting now is a flat, and it drops off, and the deer come up with a thermal, the wind blows that way all the time, southwest, and they come up and they just start scraping. Just, I think, after being bedded all day, and that's where a lot of rubs, like, I thought about it. I think after being bedded all day in that core location, and their testosterone's already ready, they could breed a doe right now. But in their core, there's, they want to, it's like, I feel like they're just like ready to go.
Like bottled up.
Like
you shake a Coke bottle before you pop the tap.
Yeah, and then they're going to get out, and then that's when them, a couple hundred yards from where they're laying all night, you start finding them scrapes. But that kind of, what that tells me is that this is where they're heading right at dark and that, and try to use the wind, go down maybe 100 yards closer, try to get near their bed as long as you ain't messing with them, But something with a bigger lick and branch, bigger size to the scrape, fresh. So, but then make sure all the components are there. Make sure what it will be, if that scrape's there, the does are close, or he's trying to claim that territory, cover everything. That's probably where we're gonna find that, And then hunting pressure is a big thing too. Just pay attention to the pressure. If that's messing with them, how then it comes into play. Is this totally nocturnal? With this time of year, probably majority of it is in a 20, 18, 19, 20 range, but not saying it all is, but yeah, but it's a lot of that with your cameras. Now you're gonna have to figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
It's always a learning process, and it never ends. You know what I mean? You just the place I'm in. I've been hunting here 8-10 years. I'm dropping more pins and learning more about it, and checking spots and fine tuning and stuff like that. And so yeah, just it's a never-ending game.
Yeah. What about you, Dad? What's your ideal scrape location look like?
Well, I ran 15 cameras on scrapes pretty much year-round here. And I got 2 of them that have had year-round activity to where, maybe twice a month, even back in March, April, there'd be two times in that month, and, between 7 and 13 days apart, they'd be hitting the scrapes. And you can see that, the knobs, even the does were hitting them. And so those 2 scrapes have me kind of excited. But the problem is they are close to bedding. And they are very difficult to get into, I think, without the perfect situation. I did do a hunt on one of them, mainly to get in and check my camera here the other day. And, I sent you the photos. They were nighttime, though. But throughout the summer, I have a lot of daytime activity going on those scrapes that I was actually surprised with. But now they're definitely... This last month they have been nocturnal, and I haven't had any pressure there. Whether other people have been in there and put some pressure on, or it's just their nature, that they're nocturnal this time of the year. But sooner or later they're going to start, showing themselves in daylight. But other than that, I still like my creek bottom scrapes. But yeah, they have to be. It seems like this time of year they hit them and then they might go dormant for a week. If you're after one particular buck. So if you go and check your cam and you have the information, you got to just try to time it out and don't want to waste your time, I guess, sitting there hoping he comes back in 2 or 3 days. He could, but just from my experience and my past information, it doesn't seem like it happens that way, at least the bucks that I have been hunting. Now, other bucks can visit it, so there is, the chance anything could show up. But scrapes are my go-to setup. Starting here in probably next week.
Yeah. What about you, Mason? I don't even know if I know this answer before you say it, but are scrapes a big part of your setups? Like it's late October, November.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of my stands are pretty goofy setups where I have spots where I just get a good feeling. I feel like this is where the bucks are going to come through, and if there's scrapes there, I feel better about it for sure. Late October, to me, in my mind, I'm thinking about my ideal late October setup, and it's like 20 or 30-year-old stand of trees, or just a lot of like pole trees where they're just barely big enough to get a stand in. A lot of beech brush, some scrapes nearby. So I like something about those pole stands this time of year. I just really like.
That's good, and it's funny because when you and I scout together, I always try to pull information out of here, have you think of it, because you just know from experience, like as far as like what feels good or what looks good. But I remember you and I were scouting in the spring and we came to a spot, and I agreed with you. You're like, this is where I'd set up, and I was like, why? And like, I don't know, it just feels good. But it was just like, it was kind of that situation. It was kind of those pole stands, and it had like this, it was like a little bit of a kind of an opening there, just where it crested over the hill. And it had, it had that, so it had that spot where you could see a buck, moving along that hill and feeling good. Had some thick cover that made him feel good. And I think a lot of times we can overcomplicate, but it's like, all right, what you look at it, and it's like, all right, does this? If you were an old deer that's trying to escape people and also look for does, is there something here that's lining up to, with this cover and everything that makes them feel secure and do it? After you and I scouted there, I came across a spot that I actually revisited yesterday in the spring, and I was like, this is where I want to set up. But it took me, after saying that and then trying to, more so like as I try to, be able to educate, even like through this podcast and everything, is like why, So I'm looking at, like, I started pulling out the map and I'm like, okay, there's a draw, it's coming up here, we got to cut here and swamp here, and it's just like they're gonna travel through here. There's probably gonna be does bedding in this cut. There's a bunch of briars in there, and there's those types of things. But that's interesting about the pole stands. That's a good add on there. Some of those older cuts can be pretty good. I like those a lot. I think you spend a lot of time in those.
Yeah.
Uncle Mike spends a lot of time in those.
I really like if you have a newer clear cut that's like 4 or 5 years old, and then you have those pole stands on the downwind side of it. Getting in those pole stands, I love those setups.
Yeah, that definitely is. So one thing that I put a question out on Instagram about what people's biggest struggles are during the rut, and ended up with like 380 responses, and no joke, over 80% of them were the same question worded a little bit or differently. One was, well, I'll word it like a couple of the different points from it. Basically, is confidence in your setup, or which spot to go to when you have multiple ones that you could go to, and how long do you give it, as far as like, do I sit here for 2 days? Do I sit here for 8 days? What? And we're all like smirking for anyone that's listening to the audio version, because like we all have these conversations constantly, and it usually takes a lot of times me calling one of you other guys to like be like, hey, this is, and because it's easier to give advice to somebody when you're not the one that's personally invested in that situation.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Mason?
No, we all go through. All of us go through it. It's a matter of waking up every day, having anxiety, talking yourself through it. It's one thing that helped me is not so much this year, because I'm looking for $1 this year, but years where I'm not really focused on $1 is getting all of your stand setups. Put all your best stand setups on a spreadsheet, mark the best winds for them, and then you wake up in the morning and you check the wind, and it's like, okay, southwest wind. You filter out, you look at your southwest wind stands, and it's like, okay, there's 2 to 4 options. It's okay. Now I know where to go. These are my options for the day. It narrows down what you have to think about, and it really simplifies picking your spot.
It helps.
Simplifies?
I think it does to me.
Yeah, it gets it down some.
Yeah. But when it gets complicated when you're looking for $1 or $2, but when you're just hunting, I mean, to me it made it so much easier. Versus some days you get a wind and you pull up your maps, it's like, I don't have confidence in any of these stands, right? So also I think having a lot of stands helps too, where I don't know about anybody else, but to me, having a lot of options where you're hunting a fresh stand more times than not, where you either haven't sat yet or you've only sat a couple times, to me that gives me confidence. Not to say if you...
So you bounce around more than sitting in the same tree?
It depends, but I feel like my confidence goes up more when I bounce around.
Gotcha.
I think it's all mental. I don't know if there's anything more to it. It's strategic, but I feel better about it.
Yeah, but that mental side of it that's a big deal. And Johnny talks about it a lot. You talk about it a lot. Mason talks about it a lot.
We talked about it today too. Is almost every morning we go to the stand, we feel like today's the day, but come like 10 o'clock, you're thinking about the next day.
Yeah, you're thinking about
where am I going to go rifle hunting? This ain't gonna work. I told Beau today. I go, I can only think of like one deer I've ever shot where I was confident I was going to kill a deer that day. It's like going to the stand, I think I'm going to kill a deer, but while I'm sitting in the tree, it's like, I should have been over here today. This ain't going to happen. And all of a sudden a deer shows up and I shoot it. It's like,
well, what I've been doing is, because I do the same thing. I think I did all my homework, that I know I just got to get in a tree and pull my bow back because he's going to walk out. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, and then when the hours go by and you're like, you're kind of like, what? He ain't got any. Then the days go by, you're like,
I guess.
Then you start looking at your maps. Where am I going to go? How come this ain't working? But what I started doing this year is like, okay, what are the reasons that put you here? Let's put them all down.
Yeah.
And say, okay, the wind is right. I was able to sneak in here every time. There's does that are right here. there's a lot of scrapes. Well, I got bucks on camera. And then the big thing is, did I put the pressure on the deer? Because we talk about pressure in deer, and how hunters in general do it. But then when you start walking the woods, you're putting pressure. Did I mess it up? Was the wind going too much the wrong way? Is it swirling? Did I mess the spot up? But I put all the the positive things down, mentally. Say, okay, there's 5 reasons. Yeah, that one day I spooked them 2 does here, but I think for the most part, my wind's right, everything's good, and it can be a waiting game. But if you got to reassure yourself, that these are all the reasons that put me here. So let's just help your confidence when the hours go by and you're not seeing the deer that you want to shoot and stuff like that. But then I always talk about being realistic. Okay, well I bumped that one buck here, and then my wind was blowing the wrong way. That yesterday I was in here, and so maybe there's more reasons for you to go to another spot, But you got to be. But then again, if you get into the rut again, some random buck could come through. But for the most part, if you got there's some areas I can hunt every day, and the wind's right, but you got the wind swirling, this and that. You start letting 1 or 2 deer know. It's like they have a conversation with each other through the woods, and they say, "This dude's down there, don't go." I swear they have language somehow. I don't know how it is, but but I feel like it is and that's what I like about hunting. It's not sometimes not the physical game, but it's mentally like.
It's more of that than anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. It's more mental.
Especially based on that survey too.
Yeah,
I mean,
mentally, it is a game that you're playing in your head to see if to figure it out. But then, like what Mason said, I have a ton of spots, all over. Whether it's one deer and you got all these spots, or you got, and then we talked about earlier, like. Even if you have to do it after dark, go check a couple cameras, and I try to keep some spots close to the road that I can have, I don't live here, so I can get about 4, 5, 6 cameras checked, boom, 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 boom. Right. I'm like, okay, I got some good spots. If you got like 2 spots that are way back in the woods, you got to walk all the way back, and again, it's no good. So you got to have a variety. Have some close to the road where you can, or you get out and say you're going to get out and eat lunch. I'm going to grab a couple cameras. Oh, like today I got out and. I was able to check 4 or 5 cameras real quick. Invasive went in and out right along the road. So that's to have more options. And then there's times where you check in cameras, you get 4 or 5 buck. Hey, it's happening right now, So let's abandon this ship, and I think let's jump on board here and keep scouting's always in all of our that's always. When you're in that stand, you're kind of looking at if you pull your map up, you're looking at. That's why I look at me at noon. I'm going to check these to make a play for the night, or I come back to this spot. Just having all your options, you know what I mean. But don't sell yourself short on your spot if you ain't been screwing it up. It just.
Yeah, I mean, in the big woods, the deer aren't always they're not always going to be through there just because it's a perfect morning. It doesn't mean that they're going to come in front of you. I mean, there's if you have a good spot that you feel good about and things are lining up and you look at your pros and cons list and you're looking at stuff, it's probably going to happen at some point. But there is that line of do I sit there for 10 days straight and after, day 6 I ain't seen anything. That's a hard, and I struggle with it too. I don't put a limit on. I've sat in some trees for 6 days in a row, and then there'll be some I bounce after one, and it's really hard to put it into this information on the podcast of when to do it, and there's not really a hard number or whatever that you can do. It's more of kind of one. I think Johnny put it really good of the feeling of, okay, did I blow everything out in this area? Did I bump things in coming in? What was I doing? Now during the rut, it's a little bit different. There's deer coming from everywhere. Those bucks that buck could have been 3 miles away coming over there, and he just knows that doe group was there from when he came and did a loop in the summer. He's coming to look for those deer, and that doesn't matter. There's times where I've hunted right on doe bedding areas, knowing that I was going to blow them out, not caring because I was like, a buck's going to come look for them.
You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the scent's there. The scent's laid down. You blow them
Yeah.
out, it's no big
It
deal.
don't matter. Yeah.
Yep.
And that
So-
snorting and that, it don't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care about it during the rut.
Yeah.
What about you, Dad?
Well, I agree with Mason. I do narrow mine down to the wind directions, but it still might take me down to 4 or 5 sites. So, and I don't know if you remember, I'd lay maps out for you, just in case something happened, I didn't come home, and but I'd have, 3, 4, 5 waypoints circled. I could be in any one of these stands. And like, you don't know where you're going. No, I don't.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. Yeah.
And I start driving and I let my gut take over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a feeling that I can't explain, but that usually directs me. And, I end up in one of them. And most of them don't have cell service, but yeah, I rely on that. But and I think that gut instinct is more based off, the camera history, the years of history, hunting
It's
those
experience,
areas.
yeah.
Experience, yeah. It comes down to the experience on it. It makes you feel better about the spot. And then you might get in there and then, 8:30, 9 o'clock rolls around and say, you plan on doing all these sit, and it's like, no, it just don't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And, for whatever reason, maybe the wind's swirling a little bit, this or that, which during the rut, I sit through that type of swirls, or if you blow the doe out, I sit through that because, or even if a deer starts blowing at me, I blow back at it, and it seems like that helps some, unless they want to get into a.
Well, yeah, it depends on the blowing. Like if it's like, and you hear them going away, it's like, all right, you're not recovering from that one.
But if they're sitting out there and they just blow once in a while, and it's just like, you're hoping they're going to leave, but then you're trying to make it sound like you're deer too, and you're smelling the same thing, but it's okay. Just hang around and just shut up, kind of thing. And I've had bucks come by 15 minutes later after a deer blowed at me.
Yeah, because they're like, there's a deer there, and it's a doe, and it could be in heat.
Yeah.
So he's going to come check it out.
Yeah.
So I guess it comes down to gut feeling for me, from the experience. And as far as the number of sits in a day, the buck I shot last year, I sat the day before all day and never seen a deer. I sat the day before that. Well, I had an encounter with them that morning on the ground. That's why I put the stand, climbed up in the saddle there. But then I had that bird hunter come in under me that Friday evening.
Yeah.
And that's like, usually I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be screwed up for a week, or a few days. But I mean, they're so used to the bird hunters anymore. There's a lot of bird hunters out there, and them deer are used to the dogs and that intrusion. I don't think it's much of an intrusion anymore like it used to be, or at least I used to think it wasn't a big intrusion, and I'd avoid those areas. But
You're probably the best person to speak on this based on your season last year, because I remember all of us you were hunting that big buck that you ended up getting, and you were going days upon days without seeing much at all, and all of us were having phenomenal days.
Oh yeah, I'd listen to you guys, and I seen this buck, I seen this and that, and if it wasn't for Beau and Rhonda, in my ear, just you got to hold out. They even had Kurt on board. I'd be talking to Kurt on the phone. Oh, Dad, you got to hold out for that buck. It's like, you don't get it.
Yeah. He didn't even want to talk to us. He wouldn't even respond to my text anymore.
How long can you sit in a stand and not see anything? And
So what were you doing there? Were you moving stands a lot, or were you sitting in the same ones?
I had I had only one fixed stand, and then I would go in the saddle. Had a couple trees and just random trees, from still hunting when I could still hunt, that I would climb. Actually the tree I shot out, it wasn't one of the stand sites I had. There was a scrape there, and I did pick them up on that scrape, and it wasn't I wouldn't call it a community scrape. I'd call it an aggression scrape, where
Testosterone driven.
It was tore up a little bit the one time, and that's what made me. And there was a nice trail there. I thought, well, maybe seems like it's a good doe trail, I guess, coming out of the clear cut. And I thought, I'll see what's running this thing, and that you get in a rut, and them bucks are going to be coming down that trail, or at least coming through there. And I did pick them up on that camera, and so that's why I ended up actually, when the conditions were right, I decided to still hunt that side of the clear cut, and I had my encounter with them. And then I kind of try to follow them and try to keep on grunting at him, and got to the point where I wasn't turning him. He was chasing a doe, and I thought, well, I'm going to go back. I'm going to climb that tree and just wait the rest of the day out. And that's when that bird hunter ended up coming in on me that evening. And then I'm thinking, well, for lack of, by then I'm wore down. I mean, this is, you know.
Mentally, yeah.
Yeah, I'm mentally wore down. It's just like, you know what, I've been all over this, around this clear cut in different stands for the different winds. And for the wind I was dealt with that Saturday, it's like, I'm just going to go back to that same tree again, even though that bird hunter was in there the night before. And then the whole day I'm thinking this is the wrong move because I wasn't seeing nothing. And then for lack of a better place to sit, I went in there that Sunday morning. We're not on a hunt that Sunday, and it was a totally different world. I mean, but I guess, the wind was right for what I wanted. Could I have gone some of my other sites with the wind I was dealt that morning? Probably, but this was it was the best setup I had, based off the information I had. So that's why I gave it another day. I've heard in the past people say, oh, you give it, 3 days, you give it 4 days, you only give it, your 1 day and you move on. But I think it comes down to what you're seeing, and if you feel confident that you didn't screw things up based off of your entrance. I thought I had a good entrance and exit to that stand. Yeah. I don't think I messed it up the days I was in there.
Well, obviously not.
Yeah.
It worked out.
Well, yeah. I still think it was a stroke of luck.
I don't believe in luck. Everybody says good luck. I said, don't even tell me.
Well, Johnny responds every single time I say good luck. I just say it out of habit. And he says, don't wish me luck. I don't believe in luck.
I don't believe in luck. Everything you did, all your
brings
work,
you luck.
makes it happen. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't, like, I just, as I say, good luck, it's just a term. You say good luck, but I know it's, and then when you maybe luckily shoot a deer, I still don't believe, like, you were out there, you did your work, you researched it, maybe it was a new area, but you were there and you made it happen, So
you should be saying,
your time
follow
in,
your plan.
Exactly.
Instead of good luck. Follow your plan,
That's
Johnny.
right. Follow your plan.
Follow your gut.
Follow your gut.
There you go.
I'm going to start saying that to you now. Follow your gut.
And that's, I think I told someone that.
The problem is I have rot gut, and it just kind of leaks out every direction. I don't know which way to go.
I think I just told someone that. I said, listen to your instincts. Just don't.
Yeah.
Then you start chasing cameras.
Yeah,
you know,
can't.
get some inventory.
That's the other thing. Yeah, and I do it more this time of the year. I chase the camera, but I've sat, and I know you've sat over scrapes that had cameras on them, where they just go downwind of the scrape.
Exactly.
Or they don't even hit the camera. I watched $5 this is years ago. I watched $5 go past my stand that never hit the scrape. If I wouldn't have been there, I would have thought, oh, this scrape's
And
dead.
I've been like, even tonight, like I'm going downwind as far as I can, usually about 100 yards as long as I can get. I'm not sitting there because it's just, especially this early in the year, they're not like dumb. It's like, I'm coming, I got all day being in my core. You look at the movement on Spartan Forge core. He's just chilling. He's just like chilling. He's like, like lazily, I could see him just get up and just like the scrapes over and just be like, you know what I mean? Not like I have to go, I don't have to, go. Some deer paw, I've seen deer just hit, some of my scrapes just hit the licking branch, not even paw it. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, look at the leaves, nothing's been here.
Well, those scrapes I was telling you about in the summer, that's all they did. They didn't paw anything.
Yeah.
They always hit just the licking branch. No,
But I think the downwind is a big thing. Now I'm just not even hunting over the scrape anymore. I'm just going downwind. This time of year, I'm just going.
Yeah.
Like today, this morning, so I was on a flat, and then there was an east-west kind of where the flat kind of dropped down, like an elevation change, maybe 50-foot elevation change, and the wind blew that way, and I just got right on the edge of that, and the scrapes were like 100 yards in from that break in the elevation. It was just like a kind of a flat with like a ridge line, I guess, and then the scrapes were like 100 yards up, like south, and I just got as far as I could to that edge because I'm like, I don't even want to hunt the scrape because they could just, this time of year being like they're gonna smell the scrape without even getting. I just went straight downwind and just sat there. I'm like, because this is where to me, a mature deer is going to be not just for the scrape, but the whole flat, and that whole break was east-west that went down, and it was southwest wind. Like, he's just gonna walk that whole edge if he wants. He can smell every scrape in the area, everything that's going on. So I got as far downwind and just, this morning. Well, it was different this morning. I hunted over that scrape, and there was a thermal pulling the air down where it broke. And then I looked at my watch, 8:30. The thermals come up, and there was 4 doe on that flat. That's when they went down that hill. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I think they were staged up there in the morning on that flat from the night before, and I felt like the morning I can catch them deer running east-west, maybe a buck checking that scrape. You know what I mean? Because before the thermals started rising, because the wind was pulling it down, cresting that hill. But I think they were already up on that flat from the night, hanging out. Just let's check that scrape. So in the morning, I didn't mind hunting right over that scrape. You know what I mean? Right before daylight, the thermals were pulling it, cresting down. But I don't think the deer were down. It's vast down over that hill. I don't think they were down in there. They were on a flat from the night before, like how we said, like a frosty morning, maybe lay in there. So then I think I felt comfortable hunting that scrape. And then once the thermals started rising, that's when the does. At 8:30, I looked at my watch, and then here come does out of nowhere, and they were dropping down over that hill. That's where they wanted to be. So there's a lot. There's a lot to it. Just got to think about them and survival and playing the wind. But then again, you go back to the West Virginia deer. How it was 5 days of northeast wind, and them deer left with the wind at their back. But I think it comes with association.
Sure.
We ain't never been effed with here, and then. The place,
Yeah, if they're comfortable, why change their pattern?
And the place I'm hunting now, where I told you, I never, knock on wood, the situation I was just in, I haven't seen anybody else hunting there, where I feel like he might not, in the evenings he comes up there, he might not have to get downwind in a scrape. He might hit it. But I'm just still covering all bases. I'm getting downwind. But, if a buck for the last 4 years was on that flat, not at the edge where it crest, where he'd be downwind, then he's just going to walk that flat if it worked every time for him. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know that, so maybe our cameras will tell us something. But it's just always asking yourself questions and dropping cameras and learning and hunting.
Well, that's where the clustering of the cameras, running multiple cameras on every possible trail system that may come through there would help you for the most part. I guess maybe not missing something, but then you're tying a lot of cameras up in one area.
Yeah,
it definitely works without a doubt, and that's what I ended up doing last year. Is once I found them
for a certain deer that buck. Yeah, you drop a bunch of cameras in there.
But I know you've been clustering a lot in the last few years, just because you do have a lot of cameras, and you can, and it does tell you a lot more than.
Oh, it tells you a ton. I've learned a ton from clustering cameras. Where I'll have I was just telling you the other day about up in one area I have 13 cameras out, and I don't have much good in there, but I have one good buck, and he only hit one of those cameras, and they're very close together, some of them, and he only hit one camera.
Well, remember years ago, I was hunting that one buck, and I moved every camera I had. I had 9 cameras I owned at that time. I moved every camera I had around. I only picked them up on one scrape prior to that, but I had 8 other cameras around there within a couple hundred yards out to a half a mile, trying to find his range, and never picked them up on another camera on another scrape.
Just the one scrape.
He only hit that one scrape.
I believe it. That big 8-point I killed 2 years ago too. There's one point I had 3 cameras on it, in a triangle, right? 1 right on the point and 2 off the edges of it. And that 8-point, I never had a single picture of it on either of those 3 cameras. And I went in there one night just because I still had a good feeling about the spot. And I jumped them right in the center of the 3 cameras.
Wow.
Never had them on camera once.
Wow.
Either of those 3.
That spot that me and you, I was just talking about earlier, where me and you put that camera on a scrape by that railroad bed there in the summer, and then the 7 bucks came in 2 nights. The doe hit it, and 7 bucks came. Well, I checked it this morning. 2 days went by, and it's easy access. I checked it, and it's like nothing hit it. I think maybe a yearling hit it at like 8 or 9 in the morning. 20 yards from it, there's a big scrape. A buck come by and a rub. I'm like, and he didn't hit my scrape. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna start wondering, like, is this the one I'm trying to find? Should I be putting a camera on this deer? But it's you know, like you said, Joe said, maybe it is a big buck that I don't. Sometimes I feel like they're other, and I don't even want to. I'll make my own scrape. This is mine. You know what I mean? Kind of like attitude like that. I ain't even going with all them does. And I got 3-year-olds hitting that scrape. Like there were 7 deer, but 7 bucks, but no like 140s, 50s, no monsters. And I'm like, maybe this is the one over here. You made it 20 yards away. I'm like,
well, I've had that happen plenty of times where you have a camera on a scrape and they'll make one on the back side of the tree.
Yeah, they'll change their scrape.
Yeah.
They'll relocate it around.
There's no doubt that cameras affect them, and certain deer are affected differently. There's some that love being there, having their photos taken on video, and they love it. They're kind of like Johnny. They just like being on camera. They like having
they like the attention.
They like the attention.
I mean, when you look, it's good. I mean, it's hard, you know.
Well, yeah, that's right, John.
Yeah, no, but
photogenic.
Yeah, that's what we'll go with.
Do you have insurance on your face, John?
Oh, yeah.
I figured you did.
As I mentioned earlier, this is a 2-part series. So this one's cutting off, and we'll jump into the second part of this episode here on Thursday of this week.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.